Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Arundhati Ramnan and here are the headlines that we're tracking for you this evening. Parliament mass suspension spree continues. 49 MPs suspended in the Lok Sabha for misconduct, taking the total number of suspended MPs to 141. Over 70% of India Alliance MPs in the Lok Sabha stand suspended. Opposition parties call the suspension a badge of honour. Parliamentary Affairs Minister says that the opposition is sulking after defeat in the Assembly polls. Sensex and Nifty hit record highs in a range-bound session. Even as the gains remain limited, mid-cap see profit booking. Shares of Zee Entertainment decline after Sony says it is yet to agree to extend the deadline to complete the proposed $10 billion merger. Sony is awaiting Zee's proposal on adhering to other conditions to close the deal. CNBC-TV18 assesses SpiceJet chairman Ajay Singh's letter to Go First Resolution Professional, highlighting their interest in bidding for the bankrupt airline. Singh says that the airline has initiated the process of raising $270 million in capital. Israel strikes a refugee camp and a residential area in Gaza, killing over 35 people as per the Hamas-run Health Ministry. The UN Security Council vote calling for a ceasefire delayed till late tonight as talks intensify to avoid another veto by the United States. Global shipping in a tight spot as more companies stay away from the Suez Canal route after attacks by Houthi rebels in Yemen. The United States forms a coalition of 10 countries to repel the attacks. 34% of the global container traffic passes through the Suez Canal. Google agrees to a $700 million settlement and allow greater competition on its Play Store. All states in the US had sued Google alleging antitrust breaches. 3 people are dead after heavy rains lash large parts of southern Tamil Nadu. Army and Air Force joins the rescue operations. Schools, colleges and business across several districts remain shut. More than 100 people are dead and 500 injured after 6.2 magnitude earthquake jolts northwest China. This is the deadliest earthquake in China in the last 13 years. Australian fast bowler Mitchell Starc becomes the most expensive player yet in the Indian Premier League. Kolkata Knight Riders shell out just under 25 crore rupees for his services. Sunrisers Hyderabad by Aussie captain Pat Cummins for over 20 crore rupees. Let's start with the day's market action. Sensex and Nifty hit record highs once again in what was a range-bound session. The gains were limited. Sensex was up over 120 points and the Nifty gained over 30 points. The Nifty Bank Index ended flat, but mid-cap saw profit booking after the recent rally. The mid-cap index ended lower by over 170 points. The central government has slashed windfall gains tax on domestic crude oil to 1,300 rupees per tonne from 5,000 rupees per tonne. Windfall tax on the export of diesel has been reduced to 50 paise per litre from 1 rupee. Now, the levy on aviation turbine fuel export has been increased to 1 rupee per litre from 0 earlier. Zee Entertainment fell over 4% in trade as uncertainty over the proposed Sony-Zee merger continues. Sony says that it is yet to agree to extend the deadline to complete the proposed $10 billion merger. Sony is awaiting Zee's proposals on adhering to other conditions to close the deal. Meanwhile, shares of SpiceJet surged in trade today on the back of the airline confirming its bid for cash-strapped Go First. CNBC-TV18 has been able to assess SpiceJet chairman's letter to Go First, the resolution professional, expressing interest in the resolution process. SpiceJet has also said it wishes to submit a viable revival plan for the grounded airline. Further, SpiceJet CMD Ajay Singh said that the combination of 2 airlines will provide for a sustainable business model. While an acquisition could help SpiceJet grow its fleet and market share, is it really in a position to make investments? My colleague Madiha Mujawar has put together a report card on the airline's financial health. Madiha, does SpiceJet have the monetary muscle to buy another airline?
Well, a look at SpiceJet's financial health shows the airline has too much to clean in its own house in the current form before it goes for an expansion. The airline has a negative net worth of 5,600 crores with total liabilities of 12,500 crores, exceeding total assets of 6,900 crores. Its current liabilities stand at 9,200 crores, exceeding current assets of 2,400 crores. SpiceJet is also struggling to make profits and is incurring losses after losses for the last many years. It posted a loss of 1,500 crores in the last fiscal and 250 crores in the first half of this fiscal. The airline had a negative operating cash flow of 150 crores in the first half of this financial year, and on account of its operational and financial position, the airline has deferred payments to various parties, including lessors and other vendors, as well as dues to statutory authorities. Last week, SpiceJet announced plans to infuse to raise funds worth 2,200 crore rupees, but that infusion is yet to materialize. Now, Go First also has huge liability, including an admitted debt of 5,400 crores and other payments to lessors, vendors and employees. Plus, lessors have been pleading before NCLT and Delhi High Court to take possession of their aircraft, without which a revival will be very difficult. So lots of headwinds here for SpiceJet to navigate if it decides to bid for Go First.
Right, Madhya, many thanks for those details. Now, shares of Apollo Tyres briefly hit an all-time high in trade after a large block deal in the stock. Around 4.5% equity of the tyre manufacturer exchanged hands today. CNBC-TV18 had reported earlier that White Iris Investment, an arm of Warburg Pincus, was looking to sell about 3% equity in Apollo Tyres with an option to upsize the deal. Keynes Technology soared over 5% after the firm launched its QIP at a floor price of 2,424 rupees per share. This was at a 6% discount to its closing price yesterday. Now, the company may further offer a discount of not more than 5% on the floor price. We learned from sources that the company is looking to raise around 1,400 crore rupees via this QIP. Now, the promoters will also have a lock-in period of 90 days after the issue. Grasim gained over 0.5% after reports suggested that the firm's clean energy arm was in advanced talks with Qatar's Nebra Power for investment in the renewable energy business. Now, this development comes as the conglomerate looks to scale up its energy business and find an investor. Nebra's Power plans to invest around $400 million as part of a JV between the two entities. The mass suspension spree in the Parliament continues. 49 more MPs were suspended today over protests seeking the Home Minister's statement on the Parliament's security breach incident. This comes a day after 78 MPs across both houses were suspended for misconduct, marking what was the highest number of suspensions in a day. A total number of 141 MPs across both houses have been suspended over the Parliament security breach issue so far. National Conference leader Farooq Abdullah, Congress MP Shashi Tharoor, NCP Supriya Sule and Samajwadi Party's Dimple Yadav were among the MPs suspended from Lok Sabha today. The opposition parties have called the suspension a badge of honor. The government, meanwhile, has said that the opposition is creating a ruckus out of desperation after their loss in the recently held state assembly polls.
जिन लोगों को जनता ने अभी जो चुनाव हुआ इसमें इनका जो स्थिति क्या है उनको पता चल गया है। इनको जनता ने पूरा सबक सिखाया है। ये तो हारने का जो डेस्परेशन है, ऐसे माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी का, मोदी जी का ये फोटो मार्क करके ऐसे अपमान कर रहे हैं। लोग इसको सबक सिखाया है। ऐसे जो मार्क और फोटो ला रहा है, ये तो मैं पूरा खंडन करता हूँ। पूरा सदन इसको खंडन करता है सर। तो और मैं आपसे रिक्वेस्ट करता हूँ, जो ऐसे फोटो लाया है उन लोगों से कार्रवाई होना चाहिए सर।
Clear they want an opposition mukt Lok Sabha, and presumably they'll do something similar in the Rajya Sabha. I think at this point we have to really start, unfortunately, writing the obituaries for parliamentary democracy in India. Today, in solidarity with my colleagues, I too joined the protests, and everybody, literally, who was present today has been suspended for the rest of the session, which means that they want to pass their bills without any discussion. I think it's a betrayal of parliamentary democracy. It's a betrayal of what Parliament is all about.
जो हो रहा है देश में बहुत गलत हो रहा है। और क्या मांग थी हमारी? हम सिर्फ एक रिप्लाई, जो हादसा हुआ है, जो हल्ला हुआ है संसद में, उस पर सिर्फ चर्चा चाह रहे हैं। ऐसे क्या मांग हम कर रहे हैं? चर्चा तो होनी चाहिए, और सिर्फ हमारे लिए नहीं, बीजेपी के सांसद है, यहाँ की सिक्योरिटी है, प्रेस वाले, सबके लिए ही है ये। कि सिर्फ सांसदों की सिक्योरिटी के लिए नहीं था, ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण मामला है, लेकिन सरकार चर्चा नहीं करना चाहिए, भाग रही है।
ये नया संसद बनाया, जे इसको लोकतंत्र का कब्रिस्तान बनाना है। कुछ चीज की चर्चा करना चाहते हैं और सुनवाई नहीं कर रही है सत्ता पक्ष, तो फिर शोर मचाने के अलावा हल क्या है? एक रूल सेट का एक नया मुकाम सेट किया जा रहा है कि इस नई पार्लियामेंट में सिर्फ नींद की गोली खा के आ जाओ सुबह, क्योंकि मुंह नहीं खोलना है, कान आँख कुछ नहीं खोलना, सवाल कुछ नहीं पूछना है।
Parikshit Luthra joins us now with some details. Parikshit, the number of suspensions are just unprecedented at this point.
Absolutely. More than 140 opposition MPs have been suspended for protesting over the security breach in Parliament and shouting of slogans demanding statements from the Prime Minister and the Home Minister. Now, this is what has happened since last week. Last Thursday, 13 MPs in Lok Sabha and 1 in Rajya Sabha were suspended. This Monday, 33 Lok Sabha and 45 Rajya Sabha MPs were suspended. And today, 49 MPs in Lok Sabha have been suspended. This roughly translates to 71% of opposition MPs in the Lok Sabha out of a total opposition strength of 133. And if you speak about the overall strength of 543 in the Lok Sabha, then 18% of the MPs have been suspended. Now, this is much higher than the episode on 15th of March 1989 when 63 MPs were suspended during the Rajiv Gandhi government. Now, the suspension of 78 MPs yesterday is the highest in a single day. The opposition has asked for a statement from the Home Minister on the security breach in Parliament, whereas the Speaker has said that the security in Parliament House is under the jurisdiction of the Parliament itself.
All right, Parikshit, many thanks for those details. Now, on that note, it is time for us to head into a short break. But coming up, Australian fast bowler Mitchell Starc becomes the most expensive player yet in the Indian Premier League. Kolkata Knight Riders shell out just under 25 crore rupees for his services. Details when we come back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're still with us on Business 360. Now, the global shipping industry finds itself in a spot of bother as 4 of the largest shipping lines decided to actively avoid the Suez Canal route. This measure was taken on account of attacks by Yemen-based Houthis. All Europe-bound ships have been rerouted to the Cape of Good Hope, which will lead to a longer voyage duration. This will impose more pressure on the global supply chain. Prashant Nair explains why. Prashant?
Well, thanks for that. You know, we've seen the story during COVID times when container freight rates went through the roof, right? We're talking about hundreds of % of increase in global container freight rates. Could that situation repeat once again? That is the question. So the market is in a bit of a tight spot, and let me tell you why. Now, you know, global sort of volumes of containers from Asia to North America either goes via the Panama Canal or the Suez Canal. Over half of the global container volume passes through these two passages. Now, Panama, thanks in part to the El Nino, is suffering one of its worst droughts since 1950s. So water levels are low, throughput is limited. The Suez Canal, which was functioning well till now, that approach has now been attacked. Commercial ships which were passing through that have now been attacked by Yemen-based Houthis, rebels, leading to most large shipping liners refusing to take that route. The world's largest liner, MSC, has announced that it will now reroute all Europe-bound vessels via the Cape of Good Hope. This is until further notice. Other liners which have done this include Maersk, CMA, CGM, and others. I mean, actually 4 out of the top 5 have done this. Now, the importance of Suez, right? It serves about 34% of the global container traffic. I mean, that's 1/3 of the global traffic. The Panama Canal, in comparison, only serves 9%. It's not just containers, though. If you look at the Suez, that accounts for about 8% of the tanker flow, which is oil, etc., and 5% of global dry bulk traffic, coal, iron ore, and other products. Meanwhile, Panama accounts for 5% of the tanker and 2% of total dry. So the importance of Suez, when you look at this as against Panama, is outsized. What's the problem, you might ask, if ships take a slightly different route, go via the Cape of Good Hope? Well, the problem is the distance increases. The voyage between, for example, Shanghai and New York is 17% longer and 37% longer via the Suez Canal and the Cape of Good Hope, respectively, as opposed to the Panama Canal. The same also applies to routes between Asia and Europe. I mean, a voyage between Shanghai and Rotterdam, which is the Netherlands, is 32% longer via the Cape of Good Hope versus if ships took the Suez Canal. And of course, the Suez is longer than the Panama. Basically, the diversion away from the Suez will extend the voyage duration and hence, in a way, remove a portion of effective ship capacity. You know, you need more ships basically to do the same trip, service the same routes. The fear is that this will hit global supply chains at a time when many believe global inventories have been depleted post the one-year-long destocking that we've seen. Companies who regularly sort of come on our programs have told us that most have been expecting by December inventories to be flattened. Have shipping rates moved yet? The Shanghai Containerized Freight Index, that basically is an indicator of spot shipping rates, has seen 3 weeks of continuous gains. From the end of November, that index is up about 10% or so. It's not large. Back during COVID, we saw, of course, the rise was much steeper. the issue remains a potential threat, of course, to earnings of exporters, but not just exporters, importers as well. And of course, I mean, it is generally inflationary because it increases inefficiency, it increases costs. And of course, I mean, for stuff like grains, oil, I mean, this could have a pretty overall kind of an impact unless and until, I mean, the issue actually gets resolved pretty quickly. Back to you.
Right, Prashant. Many thanks for those details. But meanwhile, the United States has announced the launch of a multinational force to protect trade in the Red Sea. This after attacks by Yemen's Houthi rebels. Now, U.S. Defense Secretary said that Bahrain, Canada, France, Italy, the Seychelles and the United Kingdom would be among the countries joining the 10-nation multinational security initiative. Now, Google has agreed to pay over $700 million as part of an antitrust settlement with American states and consumers. The tech giant will pay $630 million to consumers and the remaining amount to 50 states. Eligible consumers will get at least $2 each of the settlement claim. Google has also agreed to modify its Play Store policies to reduce barriers to competition. Now, the company has accused of overcharging consumers by unlawfully dominating the Play Store app. Apple will halt the sale of 2 smartwatch models in the United States due to a patent dispute over its blood oxygen feature. Online sales of its Series 9 and Ultra 2 smartwatches will pause on Thursday. In October this year, the U.S. International Trade Commission found that Apple violated medical tech firm Masimo's patent rights. The commission said it could bar certain imports of Apple after a 60-day review by the White House. Now to the latest from the IPL auctions. The Aussie duo of Mitchell Starc and Pat Cummins have bagged the big bucks at the auctions. Starc is now the most expensive player in IPL history. Jude Sanit is here with more. Jude?
Well, it looks like Australia's World Cup winning efforts just last month are finally worth their weight in gold, or IPL money rather. Their premier fast bowler Mitchell Starc is making his way to the bank with a cool 24.75 crore rupees. Courtesy, of course, by that winning bid by KKR. This makes Mitchell Starc the most expensive IPL bid in the history of the tournament, breaking the record of his own teammate, Pat Cummins, Australian captain, only earlier in the day. What a year he's had. World Cup winner just last month, World Cup winning captain rather, won the World Test Championship and now is the second most expensive player in all of the IPL history, going for 20.5 crore rupees to Sunrisers Hyderabad. But they weren't the only top buys at the auction this year. You saw Daryl Mitchell going to CSK for a cool 14 crore rupees, even as India's very own Harshal Patel went to the Punjab Kings for about 11.75 crore rupees, even as some great budget buys. South Africa's Gerald Coetzee going to Mumbai Indians for about 5 crore rupees. Rachin Ravindra, top dollar New Zealand player, going to CSK for an astoundingly low 1.8 crore rupees, making him the biggest budget buy of the season. So some great names going for big money and some pretty cool budget buys, that all of which make this year's IPL auction truly one to remember for the ages.
All right, Jude, many thanks for those details. Now, the RBI has moved to ensure that banks and NBFCs do not use the AIF route to evergreen their loans. It has told banks and NBFCs that if they own units in AIFs, which have invested in borrowing companies who are also borrowers with the bank, then these banks will have to sell out of those loans in 30 days. Lata Venkatesh is here with more details. Lata?
Well, let me explain what exactly the Reserve Bank is worried about. What has been happening is, banks have given loan, not banks, more the NBFCs have given loan to a company that is in debt and that is not able to pay back. What these guys, the banks or the NBFCs do is they buy units of an AIF. Now, the AIF takes that money and gives it to the borrowing company which is about to default, and then defaulter pays back the bank. So you're actually evergreening the loan. So what RBI said is that this won't do. If a bank, if an NBFC buys units in an AIF, which also has lent to one of the companies that has a loan from the investing bank, then they have to, the bank or the NBFC has to sell out of that borrowing company. They can't be lenders to that company. They just want to stop this malpractice. What they have also said is that in case this practice continues and they find that a bank has invested in an AIF, which in turn has lent to their own borrowing company, then that entire amount has to be provided for. You have to make a provision in your books because they suspect that that loan is going to become a bad loan. A third thing that they have said that, they have noticed what AIFs and NBFCs and borrowers are doing is that, a bank has bought the units of an AIF. The AIF has lent it to the borrowing company so that it doesn't default. While writing out the contract, the AIF insists that if that borrowing company goes defunct, becomes bankrupt, then the first charge on the assets will be with the AIF, not with the bank or the NBFC. What RBI is saying is if there is such a provision, then banks have to provide additional capital for the loans that it has lent to that borrowing company. Basically, it wants to stop this malpractice. That's the meaning of the new rules.
Oh, all right, Lata, thank you so much for that. But with that, it is a wrap on this edition of Business 360. Many thanks for watching, but stay tuned to CNBC-TV18. More news and updates continue on the other side.
CNBC-TV18